Welcome today, folks. This is Mr. H, the fine arts instructor. Just wanted to show you an example today of how to build a basic house shape and then add extra details to it to give it some sense of personalization. So the first step is, of course, to add your vanishing points. Now remember that your vanishing points can be at any height that you want. So if you want them up high, as if you're a bird looking down at the building, then you could create a bird's eye view by creating your vanishing points up really high. If it's somewhere near the middle, then that's going to be more like you just standing on the street looking at something in front of you. And if they're down low, it's called a worm's eye view. And that just means that you'd be down very, very low, as if you're laying on the ground looking up at something that is much, much taller than you. For the purposes of this piece, I'm going to put the vanishing point right in the center. Since this paper is 8.5 inches, that means that my center point is going to be at 4 1/4. But if you want to do 4 or 4 1/2 or 5, it doesn't really matter. So my first step is the same as the first step that you learned when we first started drawing basic forms, and that's to draw a straight up and down line. I'm not going to let it touch the bottom of the paper. I'm going to start maybe 1.5 inches from the bottom of the paper and then stop somewhere above the horizon. Now, do you have to use any specific measurements? No, you can make it as tall or as short as you want. And then we're going to draw the top and the bottom of the building going towards my right vanishing point and towards my left vanishing point after that. Remember, make these lines roughly the same in length. Allow them to look like they're ending one above the other, and it typically gives you a better looking piece. And then wherever you decide that you want the back of the building, go ahead and put up a straight up and down line between those diagonals. If one of them is a little bit longer than the other, just erase that excess line, and that way you have a straight up and down line and not a line going at an angle. If I feel like this side got too wide, I can shorten it up. So you can shorten it up to whatever width you want. And I do think that I want it to look a little less wide. So I drew that straight up and down line a little bit further over than the end of those lines, and then I'll just erase those extra bits. Now, for anybody that watched the video of how to create a house roof, you'll notice that I taught you two different ways to make a house roof, the cheater way and the correct technical way. And I think for this one, I'm going to use the correct technical way because it is more perfect and it does look a little bit nicer. So to create the house using the correct technical method, we just have to draw the sides that we can't see and make it look like a transparent cube for a short time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from this corner on the left side, and I'm going to go towards my right vanishing point. I'm drawing this line really light because it will be erased. I'm going to do the same thing up here from this corner, from my left top corner towards the right vanishing point. And then I'll do the same thing from these two corners on the right side going towards my left vanishing point. Now, wherever these lines touch each other, that's going to be the back corner of the building. And that's where you can put in a straight up and down line. Okay, now that we've found the two invisible sides that are on the other side of this structure, we can figure out where the center of the front right side is and where the center of this back side is that wouldn't be visible through the house. So remember, this is one of those times that you can break that rule about if it doesn't go straight up and down, it goes to the vanishing point. In order to figure out the center of this side, we need to connect the two corners together. And remember, you don't have to draw the line the whole way. You can just draw it near the middle somewhere. And then do the same thing, connecting this corner to this corner. And that lands us right here where they cross over each other as being the center of this side of the building. I can raise my straight up and down line right from there. And you can make that house roof as tall or as short as you want. And then we'll go ahead and draw the edges of the roof. Choose whatever angle you want. It could be less of an angle, more of an angle. It's kind of up to you. It's slightly easier if you choose a higher angle. Wherever those two lines hit each other, that's where I'm going to make the line that goes from here towards here. And remember, this is one of those lines that breaks the rule. It does not go to the vanishing point. So is this line. This line also does not go to the vanishing point. And remember, I'm going to go a little bit further than the edge of the building so that we have the eaves of the roof hanging just past the edge of the building. And then afterwards, we can go ahead and do the same thing from back here. Draw my straight up and down line. Now just realize I'm not sure exactly what angle I want to use here because I want to make sure it's the same angles that we have here. So how do we figure that out? Well, you just go from the top of this part towards your left vanishing point. And wherever that line hits, that straight up and down line is where you can stop, because that's where this angle is going to be hooking up with. I don't really need to draw the roof on this side. It's behind the building. We're never going to see it. And then we can create the eaves, the edge of the eaves. And we can erase the lines that we don't need anymore. Now, we did not define the length of the eaves on the other side of this building, so we got to figure out exactly where this corner would be over here. So we'll line up this corner with the right vanishing point, and it looks like I need to lengthen up this line in order to meet that one. And then it's going to go back towards my left vanishing point. Just like those eaves did. All right, so you've now got the basic structure of your house built. And from here you can start thinking about how high you want your windows and doors to be. Now, the best way to start doing this is to make a mark somewhere along this edge of your building that tells you where you want the height of the doors and windows on the bottom floor. So I'm going to make a little mark right here. This is going to be for the tops of the doors and windows. And this mark right here is going to be for the bottoms of the windows. If I want to have some windows in the upper story, I can do the same thing up here. And then all I've got to do is just to draw two lines that go towards one vanishing point. So if I'm on the right side of the building, I go to my right vanishing point. And this is going to help me to place the tops and bottoms of my windows. Now remember that windows are going to get less tall as they go further back in space, and also less wide as they go further back in space. So if you draw your first straight up and down line right here, then think ahead of time about how wide you want your windows to look overall. This space should be smaller on the other side of the building. So make sure to make it look less wide, and that way it's going to look correct. Now we could have just one big window right here, but it usually looks a little bit better if we divide it up into multiple windows. So instead of just drawing the line first, I'm going to make myself some little marks so that I can think ahead of time about what sort of widths I want for my windows and how much space I want between them. So this might be 2 lines to define the space between 2 windows. And remember, your windows should be getting smaller and smaller as they go back into space, and so should the spaces between them. So this space will be smaller than this one. This window should look a little bit wider than this one. I'm going to move my marks over just a little bit over here because that middle window is going to look a little bit smaller than the one on the very end. And then I can go ahead and put in my straight up and down lines. Okay, so I've got the outsides of the windows defined now. I can then go ahead and get rid of the little lines for the top and bottoms of the spaces. And now we've got 3 nicely defined windows. Now we can use these marks down here at the bottom the same way. So I'm going to draw a very light line for the tops of our door and windows. Now, if you want to do your door first, it's not a bad idea. And if we want to, we can make the door the same width as this window. So I can use this line that I've already got right here to help to define the width of the door, and it'll go all the way down to the bottom of the building. I can do the same thing right here. And then after that, I can start working on the bottoms of the windows and then the spaces between the bottoms of the windows. I can use this line right down here, that line right down there, and that line, and this line right down there. Now, by the way, if it helps you, you can use the other side of your ruler so that you can make sure that the distance between this window and the door looks correct. And that way, if your line is a little bit crooked, you'll notice. Okay, so you've got your windows and your door defined. At this point now, you can start to add in some of the finer details. So if you want to have window sills, you can do window sills. That was kind of like we showed on the very first, or on the second video, where you added like window sills into those floating boxes in space. Or you could have like frames around your windows. I'm going to do the frames, I think. So I'm going to mark the thickness of the frames right on the corner of the building. I'm just guesstimating them, but if you want to measure, you could measure. And then I'm lining up my pencil with that mark, and I'm just drawing that only inside each one of those windows. That way there is no unnecessary erasing. Keeps your life a little simpler. Do the same thing from this mark. Then from these 2 marks. Now, why am I doing all the tops and bottoms first before I do the upright portions? Well, because when I make the line here, I can also make it down here as well. So that just makes it a little bit easier on you and ensures that they look really consistent in their width between the top and bottom floors of windows. So now I can start making those straight up and down lines. And I'm going to try as hard as possible to make sure that the thickness of the window frame looks consistent all the way around. We don't want it to look like, really skinny here and really thick here or anything. Now remember, the width is going to reduce as you go further over in space, so don't make both sides the same thickness. This side will be just a little bit thinner than the first side that you executed. And then I can move over and do the same thing on this window. Now, obviously the door isn't going to have one of these, although it could if you wanted. We could do a door frame. And why don't we? We have the room. You didn't need this line right here, although if you wanted a window in your door, then you could do a line right there for that. And then we just got our last two straight up and down line sets. One right here and here, and then one more on the other side of these last two windows. Okay, so some windows have cross pieces in them, some windows don't, so you get to decide whether or not you want to have those. I think I'm going to put them in my piece, but like I said, this is your decision, this is your piece, you decide. So I'm giving myself two really close together marks on the corner of the building here to help to define where those cross pieces will be, and then do those two. And then we can put in the straight up and down lines here and here. Or you can leave them like this, and this could be like a sash window that you would push upwards. That's up to you. If you are going to draw the ones in the other direction, make sure that the window panes that are on the left are a little bit wider than the window panes that are on the right. And that's, remember, because as things get further away, they get smaller in space. As well as less tall. Oops, you know what? I forgot to make that first line down here. Let me go back over and execute that line as well. There we go. I think I was just a little bit crooked with my pen, with my ruler. I think we're going to straighten that up. Better. I think that further away window pane is just a little too small, but I'm going to go with it for right now. All right, so, whoops, what am I doing? Didn't do it up there either. Getting sloppy. Good example that the teacher is not always perfect. Sometimes the teacher makes mistakes which require fixing when that happens. All right, let's do this middle window frame too. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to think about whether or not we want windows on the other side, and if we do, we can use these same marks that are along the corner of the building to create windows that are the same size over here. So let's go ahead and give ourselves some lines for that. Now I don't think I want to have a whole bunch of windows. I think I'm just going to do like maybe 2 on each story. And so we're not going to have to draw quite as many. If I wanted to have a door on the side of the building, I could do that if I wanted as well. So maybe I'll just do 2 big windows with a good amount of space between them. Okay, so I'm just going to do those two big windows. I'll just have a space in between them. Maybe I'll put something else in that area. We'll see how it goes. And I can still use all these marks along the corner of the building to give myself the thickness of the window frame and where the cross pieces are placed and so forth. So what you see is that when we use those marks on the corner of the building, our windows end up feeling like they're at the same height as each other on both the left and the right side of the building. And that's important because typically windows are the same height as each other, and therefore this is going to look like more of a realistic scene. If you were making different sized and placed windows, it would look too random and it wouldn't look like it was actually resembling a real house that somebody would actually build. Now I'm going to put in the straight up and down lines to end the window frames where they hit the glass. Remember, these should be getting less wide as I go further over, so I'll make sure that this other set is not quite as thick as the first straight up and down part. And then we'll do the same thing over here. And right over here. All right, and then after that I can create those cross pieces, and I'll use those same marks, these two and these two, that we had used for the front side of the building. Okay, now I can choose to make just one cross piece in the middle, but sometimes on wider windows there might be more than one. I'll let you choose what you want to do. I think I'm just going to stick with the one, but you know, feel free to show your creativity, your thoughts, and what you think is going to look the best when you're working on your drawing. All right, so the last detail I'm going to add on this before I wrap up this video is just a silly little detail. How about a doorknob? So for a doorknob, all you have to do is just draw an oval and then two little lines that go towards the vanishing point on your left if the door is on the right side of the building. If your door was on the left side of the building, it'd go towards the right vanishing point. So the doorknob post, that's kind of like the little cylinder that's behind the doorknob, is just barely visible going towards that vanishing point on the opposite side compared to the building side that we were on. So there's your basic building. And then in the next video, what we're going to learn how to do is to create a walkway, a sidewalk, maybe some grass. We'll learn how to draw some hedges, some like little rectangular trimmed bushes, and perhaps some other details as well. We can talk about, you know, a mailbox or some other things as well. So, have a great day and continue to watch the next video for even more details for our house drawing. Thank you very much.